Move your gate. She didn't ask. She didn't explain. She just stood there, pointing at my ranch entrance like she owned it. I leaned against my truck for a second, trying to figure out if this was serious. You talking to me? I asked. Her sunglasses came down just enough for her to look over them. Yes, that gate is blocking access. I glanced behind me. My gate, my land, my road. Then back at her. No, it's not. That should have been the end of it. But people like her, they don't stop. They escalate. I had bought the ranch about 2 months earlier, large property, hundreds of acres, open land, fencing, and one long dirt road leading to the main gate. Quiet, private, exactly what I wanted. And about half a mile past my property line, there was an HOA community, nice houses, clean driveways, and apparently a serious misunderstanding about boundaries. When I first moved in, the previous owner told me something interesting. Some of those HOA folks cut through here, he said. Cut through? I asked. They use your road as a shortcut. I frowned. That's not happening anymore. He just smiled. Good luck. At the time, I thought he was exaggerating. He wasn't. Within the first week, I saw it myself. Cars driving through my land, like it was public property. No hesitation, no permission, just entitlement. So I did the obvious thing. I installed a gate, heavy-duty steel, locked, clear sign, private property, no trespassing problem solved, or at least, that's what I thought, until the first time she showed up. Same woman standing in front of me now, HOA president, Karen Energy at full volume. I live back there, she said, pointing past my land. That's nice, I replied. This is a shared access route. No, it's not. She stepped closer. We've been using it for years. I nodded. I believe that. So move the gate. And there it was again. Not a request, a demand. I shook my head. No. Her expression tightened instantly. You're going to cause problems. I shrugged. Then stop driving through my property. She stared at me for a second, like she couldn't believe someone said no to her. Then she turned and walked away. And for about 3 days, everything was quiet. No cars, no shortcuts, nothing. Then on the 4th day, I heard it. A loud metallic crash. I stepped outside immediately, and there it was. My gate, bent inward, and a car halfway through it. Her car. She had driven straight into it. Like the sign didn't exist, like the lock didn't matter, like my property meant nothing. I walked up slowly. She stepped out of the car, furious. You need to remove this thing, she snapped. I looked at the damage, then at her. You just rammed my gate. It shouldn't be here, she shot back. That was the moment. The exact moment I realized this wasn't going to be solved with a conversation. This was going to need something else, something permanent. Because if a locked steel gate wasn't enough to stop her, then clearly, I needed something stronger. And that's when I decided the gate wasn't the solution, a wall was. I stood there looking at the damage. My gate, twisted inward, steel bent like it was nothing, and her car, scratched, dented, but still running. She slammed the door shut and walked toward me. You need to remove that thing, she snapped again. I didn't respond right away. I just took a slow step closer to the gate, ran my hand along the bent metal, and then looked at her. You drove through a locked gate, I said calmly. It shouldn't be there, she fired back. That was her answer. Not an apology. Not even an excuse. Just entitlement. I pulled my phone out. What are you doing? She demanded. Calling this in. Her expression changed instantly. Oh, please, she scoffed. You're not going to make this a big deal. I looked at her. You already did. I stepped back and made the call. 10 minutes later, a patrol unit arrived. 2 officers stepped out. They took one look at the scene and immediately understood. Bent gate, car halfway through, clear signage. Ma'am, one officer said carefully, can you explain what happened? She blocked access, Karen said, pointing at me. The officer looked at the sign, then at the lock. Did you drive into the gate? It was blocking a shared road, she insisted. The second officer shook his head slightly. This is private property. That didn't sit well with her. No, it's not. We've been using this for years. The officer nodded. That doesn't make it public. Silence. For a moment, she didn't have a response. Then she turned it around. He's harassing us, she said. I almost laughed. By locking my own gate? The officer held up a hand. All right, let's keep this simple. He turned to her again. You damaged private property. Her jaw tightened. That gate shouldn't have been there. The officer didn't argue. He just wrote it down. Because at that point, her opinion didn't matter. Facts did. After a few more minutes, they stepped aside with me. You want to press charges? One asked. I thought about it, then shook my head. Not yet. They both nodded, because they understood. This wasn't over, not even close. Karen got back in her car, backed out through the broken gate, and left without another word. But the next day, it got worse. Much worse. I woke up early, walked down to check the entrance, and what I saw made me stop. The gate wasn't just damaged anymore. It was gone, completely removed, cut clean off at the hinges, chains on the ground, sign tossed to the side, and tire tracks, fresh ones, leading straight through my property. I stood there in silence for a few seconds, because now, this had crossed a line. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was deliberate. Someone had taken tools, time, effort, just to remove a barrier that was never theirs to begin with. And I didn't need to guess who. By mid-morning, cars were already using the road again, driving through like nothing had happened, like my land was public, like the gate never existed. And that's when I realized something important. A gate wasn't enough. A lock wasn't enough. Even the law wasn't enough to stop someone like her, because she didn't care. So I stopped thinking about temporary fixes and started thinking permanent. That afternoon, I made a call, then another. By evening, I had a crew scheduled. Materials ordered, concrete, steel reinforcements, heavy equipment. Because if she wanted to treat my land like a road, then I was going to make sure there was no road left to use. 2 days later, construction started. Big machines, loud engines, digging deep foundations right across the entrance. Residents started showing up again, confused, concerned. What's happening? Someone asked. I didn't stop working. Building a wall, I said. A wall, they repeated. I nodded. Something a car can't go through. That's when Karen showed up again, furious. You can't do this, she yelled. I finally turned toward her. Watch me, she pointed at the construction. This blocks access. I stepped closer. No, it ends trespassing. The crew kept working behind me, concrete pouring, steel going in, layer by layer. The entrance disappeared, and for the first time, I saw something different in her expression. Not anger, not arrogance, worry, because now, she realized something she hadn't before. This time, she wasn't going to be able to break through. By the third day, the wall was impossible to ignore. Concrete base, steel reinforcements, solid from end to end. Where there used to be a road, there was now a barrier, permanent. And this time, no one was driving through it. Cars began lining up early that morning, residents stepping out, walking up to the wall, confused at first, then frustrated. What is this? You blocked the entire road? I stood off to the side, watching quietly. Because now, they were finally seeing the reality. That shortcut they'd been using for years was never theirs. It just wasn't enforced. Until now. About 20 minutes later, the HOA board showed up. All of them, and right behind them, Karen. But this time, she wasn't leading. She was following. Big difference. The new tension was obvious. What's going on here? One resident demanded. The board hesitated, because they didn't have control anymore, not over the road, not over the situation. Finally, the HOA president stepped forward. This is a temporary issue, he said. I shook my head. No, it's permanent. Silence. Karen stepped forward immediately. You can't just block access like this. I looked straight at her. You removed my gate. That shut her up for a second, but only for a second. That gate was illegal, she snapped. I tilted my head slightly. So you cut it down? She didn't answer, because now there were too many people watching. And for the first time, everyone was starting to connect the dots. One resident turned to the board. Did she actually remove his gate? No one answered. That silence was louder than anything else. The pressure shifted instantly. Now it wasn't me versus HOA. It was residents versus the board. What else haven't you told us? Someone asked. Karen tried to step in again. This is about him overreacting. No, I interrupted calmly. This is about trespassing. Then I pointed at the wall. And this is the solution. The treasurer stepped forward quickly. Let's talk about this. I nodded. We can. Privately. I looked at the crowd. No. We'll do it here. Because this time, everything needed to be clear. No confusion. No hidden decisions. The president sighed. What do you want? Simple question. Simple answer. Respect property boundaries, I said. And? I looked directly at Karen. She covers the cost of the damage. Her head snapped toward me. What damage? I didn't even react. The gate, I said calmly. Removal. Destruction. Labor. The treasurer closed his eyes for a second, because he already knew. This wasn't optional anymore. Residents were watching, listening, and they weren't on her side. One man spoke up from the crowd. If she caused it, she should pay. Another voice followed. Yeah, why are we even arguing this? And just like that, the momentum shifted completely. Karen looked around, waiting for support, but it wasn't there. Not this time. The president cleared his throat. We'll review the costs. I shook my head. No. Then I added, you'll approve them. Silence. Because now, there was no room left for delays. No room for excuses. After a long pause, the treasurer nodded. We'll handle it. Karen stepped back, defeated. Not loud, not aggressive, just quiet. Because for the first time, she had hit a wall she couldn't push through. Literally. The agreement was finalized later that week. Full payment for damages, written acknowledgement of private property boundaries, and one more condition. No HOA member would ever use that road again. Once everything was signed, I made one final change. Not to remove the wall, but to modify it. A controlled access point. Locked, secured. Only for authorized use, and only with permission. Because this wasn't about blocking people forever. It was about control, and making sure it stayed where it belonged. A few days later, the HOA held a meeting. This time, without Karen leading it. Too many complaints, too many issues. And by the end of it, she was removed. No arguments, no resistance, just over. The new HOA leadership reached out shortly after. Different tone, different attitude. We want to avoid problems going forward, the new president said. I nodded. That's a good start. And just like that, things settled. No more cars cutting through. No more arguments, just quiet. The way it should have been from the beginning. Because in the end, it wasn't the gate